The afternoon sun, a pale gold coin in the vast expanse of the autumn sky, cast long lazy shadows across the manicured lawns of the Miller estate. David Miller guided his luxury sedan through the wrought iron gates, a faint smile touching his lips. The business trip to Tokyo had been a roaring success, sealing a merger that would add another, even more impressive, zero to his company's valuation. But the true success he felt was in his early return. He'd pushed through the final meetings, delegating the dinner engagements to his more than capable VP, all for this moment, the surprise of arriving home a full day ahead of schedule. The tires crunched softly on the immaculate pea gravel driveway. The house, a monument of modern architecture and glass, stood silent and imposing. It was a house meant to be seen, to be admired, a testament to David's rise from nothing. He'd built this, brick by metaphorical brick, through years of 80-hour weeks and missed birthdays. He grabbed his carry-on from the passenger seat, a simple, well-worn leather bag that betrayed none of the wealth it had been purchased with. As he approached the grand front door, something caught his eye. Tucked neatly, almost apologetically, beside a towering terracotta pot containing a meticulously pruned Japanese maple, was a small, faded pink backpack. It was adorned with a well-loved patch of a cartoon unicorn. David paused, his key hovering near the lock. It was a Thursday. Grace, their live-out housekeeper, usually worked Thursdays, but she never brought her daughter. He felt a minor flicker of curiosity, but it was quickly extinguished by the fatigue of his long journey and the pleasant anticipation of a quiet evening. He shrugged it off. Perhaps Grace had a school scheduling issue. It wasn't a problem. He let himself in, the door swinging open without a sound on its perfectly balanced hinges. The grand foyer was cool and quiet, all polished marble and a single dramatic piece of modern art on the far wall. The silence felt heavy. It was the kind of deep, absorbent silence peculiar to large, empty spaces. He dropped his bag softly onto a sleek bench, expecting to hear the distant hum of the dishwasher or the faint melody of the classical radio station Vanessa always had playing. Instead, there was nothing. And then there was something. It was a voice. Vanessa's voice. But it was a version of her voice he had never heard before. It was stripped of its usual cultured, slightly bored elegance. It was sharp, metallic, and laced with a venom that made the fine hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. It was coming from the direction of the kitchen, the heart of the home that Vanessa had designed more for show than for function. He moved on instinct, his leather-soled shoes making no noise on the thick runner that lined the hallway. The voice grew clearer, punctuated by another sound, the high, desperate sob of a child. He reached the archway that led into the vast, stainless steel and granite kitchen. And he stopped, frozen in the shadow of the doorway, his hand gripping the doorframe. The scene before him was not just unexpected. It was a tableau of such profound ugliness that his brain struggled to process it for a moment. His wife, Vanessa, stood in the center of the room, her posture rigid with fury. She was wearing a designer athleisure outfit, her blonde hair pulled back in a perfect, severe ponytail. Her face, usually a mask of placid beauty, was contorted into a mask of pure, unadulterated contempt. And cowering before her, backed against the large kitchen island, was Grace Okafor's daughter, Kayamika. The little girl, who David remembered as having bright, curious eyes and a shy smile, was now trembling, her small frame racked with silent tears that streamed down her cheeks. On the floor between them lay the shattered remains of a delicate blue and white porcelain vase, an expensive artifact Vanessa had purchased on a trip to Paris. "You stupid, clumsy child." Vanessa's words were like shards of glass. "Look what you've done. That was Sevres. Do you even know what that means? Of course you don't. Your grubby little hands have no business touching anything in this house." Before David could even form a word, could even step forward, he saw it. Vanessa's leg, encased in expensive designer fabric, drew back and delivered a sharp, vicious kick to the little girl's shin. It wasn't a push, it was a deliberate, mean act of violence. Kayamika cried out, a sharp gasp of pain and shock, and crumpled further into herself. From the other side of the island, Grace Okafor scrambled into view. Her face was ashen, streaked with tears of her own. She fell to her knees on the hard floor, not even noticing the ceramic fragments that dug into her skin. She threw her arms around her daughter, trying to use her own body as a shield. "Madam, please. Mrs. Miller, I beg you." Grace's voice was choked with a panic so raw it was palpable. "I am so sorry. It is my fault. She only came to bring me my lunch. I forgot it this morning. She was only trying to help me. She did not see the vase. Please, I will pay for it. I will work for free. Take it from my wages, every month until it is paid. Just please do not hurt my baby. Please. Vanessa sneered, a horrible, ugly expression. Pay for it? You. With what? This vase cost more than you make in a year. You and your daughter are a liability. You're both fired. Get your things and get out of my house. I'll make sure you never work for a decent family in this city again. Now get out. It was this last threat, this cold, calculated attempt to destroy another person's livelihood, that broke the paralyzing spell holding David. The man who built an empire on calm logic and shrewd negotiation was gone, replaced by a man seeing a profound and shocking truth about the woman he had married. He stepped out of the shadows and into the kitchen. The air in the room seemed to shift, to grow cold. Vanessa. He said her name quietly. It wasn't a shout. It was low, flat, and carried a weight that made the entire room go utterly silent. Vanessa spun around, her eyes wide. The fury on her face evaporated, replaced first by shock, then by a dawning, terrified comprehension. She looked like a child caught with her hand in the cookie jar, but the transgression was infinitely worse. David. You're home. I didn't expect you until tomorrow. Her voice scrambled to find its usual tone, to reassemble the mask of the perfect wife. This little brat broke the Sèvres vase. The one from Paris. And then she tried to lie about it. Her mother is just as bad, covering for her. I was just. Stop talking. David's voice was still quiet, but it cut through her lies like a scalpel. He didn't even look at her. His eyes were on Grace, who was still kneeling on the floor, holding her sobbing daughter, her own body trembling as she looked up at him, expecting another wave of anger. He walked past his wife as if she were a piece of furniture. He crouched down, his large frame bringing him to their level. He ignored the priceless porcelain shards at his feet. His focus was entirely on the two terrified people on his floor. Grace, he said, his voice now soft, gentle, a complete contrast to the steel he had used with his wife. Are you all right? Grace could only stare, her mouth slightly agape, unable to process this sudden shift. She nodded mutely, clutching Kayamika tighter. David then turned his attention to the little girl. Kayamika? Look at me, sweetheart. The child, her big brown eyes swimming with tears, peeked out from behind her mother's arm. Did she kick you? David asked, his voice incredibly gentle. Kayamika, after a moment, gave a small, jerky nod, her lower lip trembling uncontrollably. Can you show me where? Slowly, the little girl pointed a small finger to the reddening mark on her shin. David's jaw tightened, a muscle flickering in his cheek. He took a deep, slow breath, mastering the white-hot anger that was threatening to consume him. He looked back at Grace. I am so sorry, Grace. So truly sorry that this happened in my home. That you were subjected to this. This is not acceptable. This will never happen again. Do you understand me? He rose to his full height and finally he turned to face his wife. Vanessa had been watching the scene, her initial fear now curdling into a defensive, sullen anger. She opened her mouth to speak, to justify herself again. David didn't give her the chance. The humiliation he delivered was not through a shouted rant or a dramatic scene. It was in his calm, utterly disgusted dismissal. I heard everything. I saw everything. The kicking. The names. The threats. He looked her up and down, and in that look, he stripped her of every pretension, every claim to social superiority she held so dear. He saw the spoiled, cruel core of her, and he let her see that he saw it. You are not the woman I thought you were. I don't even know who you are right now. He turned his back on her, a gesture of such profound disregard that Vanessa physically flinched. He addressed Grace, his voice returning to its calm, authoritative kindness. Grace, please get your things. And Kayamika's backpack by the door. I am taking you both to the doctor right now to have that leg looked at. He then looked back at his wife, his eyes cold. Vanessa, go to the living room. Sit down. Do not move. Do not say a word. We will speak when I return. And with that, he gently helped a stunned Grace to her feet, and with infinite care, he picked up a crying Kayamika, holding her safely in his arms, and walked out of the kitchen, leaving his wife standing alone and utterly humiliated amidst the shattered pieces of her own perfect life. The drive to the urgent care clinic was conducted in a silence that was thick but not uncomfortable. It was the quiet of shock, of processing an event that had fractured the normal order of things. David Miller sat in the driver's seat, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, not from the effort of driving, but from the effort of containing a storm of emotions. In the back seat, Grace Okafor held her daughter, Kayamika, who had finally stopped crying, though occasional hiccuping shudders still ran through her small frame. Grace's mind was a whirlwind of fear, gratitude, and a deep, aching humiliation that was not her own, but reflected from the actions of her employer. She stared out the window at the passing world, a world that had just proven to be both crueler and kinder than she had imagined possible in a single afternoon. David handled everything at the clinic with a quiet, efficient authority. He spoke with the receptionist, not as a wealthy man demanding special treatment, but as a concerned guardian, his voice low and earnest. He ensured they were seen quickly. He sat in the examination room with them, a steady, silent presence, while a kindly doctor, a woman with gentle hands, examined Kayamika's leg. The skin was red and already beginning to bruise, a stark, ugly mark against her brown skin, a visual testament to the violence of the act. The doctor, after confirming it was a bad bruise but nothing was broken, gave a reassuring smile, but her eyes flickered to David with a question he could feel but did not answer. He paid the bill in full without a second thought, a transaction that felt insignificant against the debt of decency he felt he now owed. On the way home he made one more stop. He pulled into the parking lot of a small, independent ice cream parlor, a place that felt a world away from the sterile luxury of his own neighborhood. "Wait here," he said, his voice softer now. He returned moments later with 2 large cups of ice cream, one chocolate and one swirled with vanilla and strawberry. He handed them into the back seat. "For you, Grace. And for you, Kayamika. For being so brave." The simple, childish kindness of the gesture seemed to finally break through the last of the little girl's fear. She managed a small, tentative smile, a sight that felt to David like a small victory in a day of profound defeat. The return to the house felt like approaching a battlefield after the fighting had ceased. The silence within was now charged, electric with anticipation and dread. David led Grace and a now limping but ice cream-occupied Kayamika through the foyer and into the kitchen. The shattered vase was still there, a glittering crime scene on the polished floor. He ignored it. "Grace, please sit. Make yourself some tea. Whatever you need. You are both welcome here. This is your workplace and you will be treated with respect in it. Always." His words were a promise, a new law laid down for this household. He then turned and walked toward the living room. Vanessa was indeed sitting on the large, white sofa, just as he had instructed. She wasn't lounging in her usual elegant pose. She was perched on the edge, her spine rigid, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She had been waiting in that silence for over an hour, and it had stripped away her anger, leaving behind a pale, nervous anxiety. She looked up as he entered, her eyes searching his face for a clue, for a hint of the leniency she might sometimes manipulate. She found none. His face was a mask of grim disappointment. He did not sit. He stood before her, not looming but simply present, a judge in his own home. "There is no version of events, no excuse, no justification for what I saw today, Vanessa," he began, his voice low and even, devoid of the heat of anger, which made it all the more powerful. "You assaulted a child. A little girl who was in our home because she wanted to help her mother. You kicked her. You called her vile names. And then you threatened to destroy her mother's livelihood, to blacklist her, to ensure they both suffered for your moment of rage over a piece of porcelain." Vanessa opened her mouth, a weak, "David," she broke, but he held up a hand, stopping her cold. "I am not finished. That vase was an object. A thing. It held value only because we assigned it value. You devalued your own character, your own humanity for a thing. I heard you. You people." "What people, Vanessa?" "Hard-working people. Immigrant people. People with less money than us." He took a step closer, and his next words hit her with the force of a physical blow. "My mother was a cleaner. She scrubbed floors on her hands and knees so I could have a chance at a better life. The women you look down upon today, Grace and her daughter, they are her. They are me. You didn't just insult them today, you spat on the memory of everything that got me here, on the very foundation of who I am." The color drained completely from Vanessa's face. This was a part of David's past he rarely spoke of, a history she had always politely ignored, treating it as an embarrassing but necessary prelude to his current success. He had never framed it as a point of pride, nor as a weapon to be used against her. The humiliation was now internal, deep and shaming. She had not just been caught in a bad moment, she had been revealed as fundamentally opposed to the core of the man she was married to. "Your life," David continued, his gaze sweeping around the opulent room, "this life we have built is a privilege. It is not a license for cruelty. It does not make you better than anyone. In fact, today it made you considerably worse." He let that hang in the air between them. "So, here is what is going to happen. Our marriage right now is hanging by a thread. To even begin to consider salvaging it, you will do two things. Vanessa looked up, a flicker of hope mixed with dread in her eyes. First, you will go into that kitchen and you will apologize to Grace and to Kayamika. It will not be a, "I'm sorry if you were offended," apology. It will be a full, specific and sincere admission of your wrongdoing. You will tell them exactly what you did that was wrong, and you will express your remorse without expecting or demanding their forgiveness. Their forgiveness is theirs to give, not yours to take. He paused, letting the difficulty of that task sink in. For Vanessa, a woman who built her identity on perceived superiority, this was a punishment far worse than any financial penalty. Second, he said, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. You will call the Immigrant Family Support Alliance downtown. You will volunteer there. Every Saturday for the next 6 months at a minimum. You will not write a check. You will show up. You will work. You will serve meals, you will sort donations, you will listen to people's stories. You will learn about the lives of the people you so casually dismissed today. You will develop the empathy that your life of luxury has apparently starved out of you. Vanessa looked horrified. David, volunteer? At a soup kitchen? My friends, the charity board. Your friends and the charity board are the least of my concerns right now, he stated flatly. This is not a negotiation. This is your path to possibly, and I stress possibly, saving this marriage. It is your chance to become a person I can actually respect. The choice is yours. You can remain the woman who kicks children, or you can try to become someone better. But you cannot be both. The ultimatum was delivered with such finality that it left no room for argument. After a long, tense moment, Vanessa slowly, stiffly rose from the sofa. She walked past him, her head bowed, toward the kitchen. David followed, standing in the archway to observe, not to support, but to witness. Vanessa stood before Grace, who immediately stood up from her chair, her body language nervous. Mrs. Miller. Grace, Vanessa's voice was shaky, thin. She glanced at Kayamika, who looked up from her ice cream, her eyes wide. The first attempt was a failure. I'm sorry for today. It was an unfortunate accident. It was the old language, the language of excuses. David said nothing from the doorway, but his silent disapproval was a physical force in the room. Vanessa swallowed hard, realizing the inadequacy. She took a ragged breath, and when she spoke again, her voice broke. The carefully constructed wall of superiority finally crumbled under the weight of genuine shame. No, that's not it. I'm sorry because I was cruel. I kicked your daughter. I called her horrible names. I terrified her and I demeaned you. There is no excuse for what I did. My behavior was disgusting and prejudiced. I am deeply and truly ashamed of myself. I am so sorry for the pain I caused you both. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She simply stood there, exposed and humiliated, awaiting their judgment. Grace, after a moment of stunned silence, gave a slow nod. It wasn't absolution, but it was acknowledgement. Thank you for the apology, Mrs. Miller. David then stepped forward. He looked at Grace. Grace, your job is not only secure, but I am increasing your salary by 30%, effective immediately. What happened today was a profound failure of this household's values, and this is a small measure of restitution. And Kayamika, he said looking at the little girl, you are always welcome here. This is a safe place for you. I promise. He then turned his attention back to his wife. The alliance opens at 9 tomorrow morning. You will be there. It was not a question. The story of David Miller's return home did not end with a single grand gesture, but with the beginning of a long, difficult journey. It was a story about the shock of discovering a terrible truth hidden in plain sight, the profound humiliation that comes not from poverty but from being exposed as morally bankrupt, and the apology that is not an ending but a painful, necessary first step toward redemption. It was a lesson that true wealth is not measured in bank statements or expensive vases, but in the currency of kindness, integrity, and the courage to confront the very worst in ourselves and strive to be better. If you found this story to be a powerful reminder of the impact of our actions and the importance of standing up for what is right, then please subscribe for more narratives that explore the complex tapestry of human nature, the consequences of our choices, and the enduring power of redemption. Your support helps us continue to share stories that matter.